Remember that guy with the wild hair and the even wilder alien theories? Ever wondered what really happened to him? Here's a hint. It involves million-dollar deals, unexpected scandals, and a twist that'll leave you speechless. This isn't just about memes or theories. It's the untold story behind the man who made ancient aliens a cultural obsession. Stick around, because what he's been up to will blow your mind. It all started in a quiet town in Switzerland, where Giorgio was born on March 14, 1978. He was surrounded by mountain views and structured schooling, the kind of place where discipline ruled. But beneath that calm surface was a pulse inherited from his Greek ancestry, a culture rich with legends, gods, and celestial myths. While his classmates wrestled with equations, Giorgio's imagination was already wandering to ancient ruins and distant stars. His childhood wasn't just about grades, it was about wonder. And then came a moment that changed everything. His grandmother handed him a book, Chariots of the Gods by Erich von Däniken. It wasn't bedtime reading. It was radical, even controversial. But to young Giorgio, it wasn't just a book. It was a revelation. It proposed that the myths of gods descending from the sky might actually have roots in something real. Not metaphor, not fantasy, but visitors, beings from beyond. That gift didn't just spark curiosity. It lit a fuse. Years later, as a young adult, Giorgio picked up the book again. And this time, the pages hit differently. It felt less like fantasy and more like unfinished business. The questions the book raised, about pyramids, ancient maps, impossible technology, refused to leave him alone. It didn't matter that he wasn't trained as a historian. He knew how to connect with people. He knew how to tell a story. And that would become his secret weapon. While studying at Ithaca College, Giorgio wasn't dissecting ancient languages. He was calling football games and learning about sports media. At first glance, it seemed completely unrelated. But that background in communication would eventually separate him from the rest. He didn't talk like an academic. He talked like a host, and people listened, even when others laughed. At the same time, Giorgio was building something totally unexpected, a career in bodybuilding. Not as a competitor, but as a promoter. He ran major events, including the San Francisco Pro Grand Prix, earning respect from giants of the sport like Ronnie Coleman. Giorgio knew how to orchestrate spectacle, lights, cameras, suspense. It wasn't ancient history, but it was a masterclass in showmanship. And showmanship, it turns out, would become a cornerstone of his rise. Then came a decision that would split his life into two distinct paths. In 1999, Giorgio co-founded Legendary Times, a magazine dedicated entirely to the theory that extraterrestrials had once visited Earth. This wasn't a hobby. He was all in, editor-in-chief, publisher, writer, designer. Most academics dismissed the topic as fantasy. Giorgio? He saw a frontier. The magazine didn't just explore mysteries, it gave voice to the unexplained, the impossible. While building Legendary Times into a one-of-a-kind publication, Giorgio never abandoned bodybuilding. He was still running events, still backstage at competitions, still immersed in an entirely different universe. Most people struggle to juggle one career. Giorgio balanced two that couldn't be more different. But maybe that contradiction is what made him stand out. As the magazine gained a loyal underground following, Giorgio started attracting other theorists, big names in fringe archaeology and unexplained phenomena. He joined forces with none other than Erich von Däniken, the man who started it all. That partnership wasn't just symbolic, it was strategic. Giorgio was no longer a fan. He was now a colleague. He even took the reins at von Däniken's Center for Ancient Astronaut Research, pushing the theory further than it had ever gone. Soon, the lines between print and television blurred. Giorgio had already made some small appearances on shows like In Search of and Is It Real? where producers gave him grand titles like Egyptologist, despite his lack of formal credentials. It was a gamble, and it worked. His intensity, his energy, his absolute belief in what he was saying caught the eye of network execs. He didn't mumble through jargon. He delivered theories like revelations. And so, the door opened. From 2002 to 2007, Giorgio became a recurring face on networks that normally wouldn't touch a theory like his. National Geographic, the History Channel, the Travel Channel. Each appearance was a test. Would audiences tune out or lean in? The answer became obvious. Giorgio wasn't just tolerated, he was remembered. Then came the moment everything shifted. In 2009, the History Channel launched a new series, Ancient Aliens. Giorgio was no longer a guest. He was the star, the face, the voice, the hair. The show exploded. Viewers didn't just watch, they became believers, or at least curious skeptics. Over 200 episodes later, his appearances on Coast to Coast AM, a late-night radio show with a cult following, turned his voice into an echo in the darkness. Perfect for those restless enough to ask, what else is out there? Giorgio's journey from a quiet Swiss town to global recognition wasn't just strange, it was impossible. Yet somehow it happened. He wasn't trained as a scholar, but he turned questions into a movement. He didn't need a PhD to make people wonder. He just needed curiosity, conviction, and a stage. And once he found it, he never left. It all began with a meme, but not just any meme. It was one of those perfectly timed internet moments that captured lightning in a bottle. A wild-haired man frozen mid-sentence, eyes wide with cosmic certainty, and beneath him, that unforgettable phrase. I'm not saying it was aliens, but... Except here's the kicker. Giorgio Tsoukalos never actually said those words. And still, that meme transformed his life forever. It was like watching a myth take shape in real time, and Giorgio leaned in, unbothered and amused by it all. Instead of distancing himself from the joke, he welcomed it like an old friend. That choice changed everything. Before the internet crowned him the face of cosmic conspiracy, Giorgio had already carved a unique niche on the History Channel's Ancient Aliens. But the meme, circulating like a digital wildfire across Reddit, Tumblr, Instagram, and Facebook, catapulted him to an entirely different dimension of fame. People who had never even seen the show now recognized his electrified hairstyle and intense expressions. And suddenly, Giorgio wasn't just a man with theories. He was a cultural symbol. Timing couldn't have been more perfect. Between 2011 and 2014, the web was hungry for irony and absurdity, and Giorgio's meme became its perfect mascot. With just one image, people reimagined him explaining everything from missing remote controls to bad breakups. He wasn't just about aliens anymore. He became a stand-in for all things weird and unexplained. The internet couldn't get enough. And Giorgio? He didn't retreat. He took it all in stride. In fact, he called it an honor during a Reddit AMA in 2015, laughing along with everyone else. It's rare to find someone who becomes the punchline and still walks away with the audience's respect. But Giorgio managed both. He wasn't just a good sport. He was brilliant about it. Every joke was another open door, another opportunity to talk about what truly fascinated him. Ancient astronauts, lost civilizations, magnetic anomalies in rocks from Roswell. Giorgio took fringe topics that most history buffs wouldn't touch and gave them center stage. He wasn't afraid to ask the boldest questions. What if the gods of ancient texts were really visitors from the stars? What if we've misunderstood the foundations of our own past? Those questions kept viewers coming back. Millions, in fact. And the reach didn't stop at the US. Ancient Aliens became a global sensation. Translated into numerous languages, aired in dozens of countries, it struck a chord everywhere. It didn't matter if the theories were controversial. In fact, that was the point. Giorgio gave people permission to wonder, to challenge the so-called facts and imagine something bigger. The spin-offs came next. Ancient Aliens, The Ultimate Evidence, Ancient Aliens, Origins, and more. Fan conventions sprouted up, and Alien Con was born. People showed up in costumes, hoping for a selfie with the man who'd turned historical speculation into entertainment gold. Then came an unlikely ally, rapper Action Bronson. He launched a show where he and his friends watched ancient aliens while, well, enjoying recreational substances and reacting in real time. It was hilarious, surreal, and oddly perfect. Giorgio wasn't just a theorist anymore, he was pop culture royalty. And Giorgio played his part like a pro. He appeared on major podcasts, most notably The Joe Rogan Experience, where he got to dive deeper into his theories than any cable runtime ever allowed. Those appearances opened him up to an entirely new audience, young, curious, and completely captivated. It wasn't about proving everything true. It was about the what-ifs. And Giorgio knew how to make those what-ifs feel electric. Even CNN Philippines couldn't resist talking about his hair. In a 2016 interview, they spent more time discussing his meme status than his actual show. But Giorgio didn't mind. He knew the meme had done more for his career than any press release ever could. And through it all, he remained grateful. At fan meetups, he often said, "I have the best fans in the world." He meant it. By 2021, Giorgio's image had crossed over into scripted TV. He made a memorable cameo in Resident Alien on SYFY, where his in-show persona gave a lecture on ancient masonry and extraterrestrials. The kicker? The alien protagonist recognized him and nodded approvingly. That moment, fiction acknowledging internet folklore, felt like a full circle. He returned again in 2022, cementing his place in the television multiverse, not just as a guest star, but as a legend in his own right. But Giorgio didn't stop there. In 2014, he launched his own show, In Search of Aliens, stepping into the role of both host and co-producer. For 10 episodes, he traded studio sets for boots-on-the-ground investigation. From chasing Atlantis to puzzling over Nazi-era mysteries, Giorgio brought viewers face-to-face with enigmas that defied conventional explanation. The critics rolled their eyes, calling it pseudo-history. But his fans? They were all in. He even explored a mysterious artifact known as the Roswell Rock, an object with unexplained magnetic properties. Giorgio wasn't afraid to touch the strange, to stand in front of ancient ruins and ask the questions that textbooks never dared print. That courage, that curiosity, it's what kept people glued to the screen. And it's what made his voice resonate beyond television. He became a regular on Coast to Coast AM, appearing at least 9 times between 2008 and 2016. But it was those 2 viral episodes on Joe Rogan that shifted everything. With no time limits, no scripts, and no filters, Giorgio explained theories in a way that felt both outrageous and oddly convincing. At one point, he declared that pyramids worldwide weren't just coincidences, they were the result of shared extraterrestrial knowledge. The clip took off online, drawing in a younger generation hungry for mystery. Suddenly, Giorgio wasn't just that guy with the hair. He was a voice, strange, bold, and unforgettable. And in 2024, he wasn't done yet. What came next was even more unexpected, and somehow, even more out of this world. Giorgio Tsoukalos never walked a quiet path. He sprinted into the spotlight with gravity-defying hair and theories that shook the pillars of science. But what made him unstoppable wasn't just the shock value of his ideas, it was how he turned belief into a spectacle. When Ancient Aliens Live took off, it wasn't just another nerdy conference. It was a full-blown theatrical experience. Bright lights, deep questions, and standing ovations in cities most celebrities never even glanced at. Fans didn't just come for information, they came for connection. From Illinois to California, crowds packed theaters, paying as little as $39 for a seat, while others dropped over $80 for the chance to be closer to the stars of the unknown. And those VIP photo sessions? They sold out fast, until Tsoukalos had to pull autographs off the table. The chaos was too much. It wasn't just hype, it was devotion. But the obsession didn't stop at America's borders. Across the globe, Giorgio was welcomed like a rock star. Invitations poured in from every corner of the planet. Whether in Tokyo or Prague, he stepped on stage like a man on a mission, often for five-figure appearance fees. And he didn't stay behind a mic. He trekked to the world's most mysterious sites. Göbekli Tepe, Puma Punku, even the Plain of Jars, not just to explore, but to guide others through what he believed were mankind's forgotten truths. There's a reason thousands showed up at Alien Con in Los Angeles. There's a reason he stood toe-to-toe with professors at Oxford Union in 2022 and never flinched. The deeper he went, the louder his message echoed. Giorgio insisted that humanity didn't just invent advanced technology out of thin air. He looked at places like Tiwanaku and saw more than ruins. He saw evidence of influence, something beyond human. Puma Punku obsessed him most. Stones cut with laser-like precision. Copper tools from ancient days couldn't do that, he said. Not a chance. Forensics experts like Casey Hamakar supported his skepticism. The puzzle didn't make sense. The theories didn't come from nowhere. They were crafted to provoke thought, to shake the accepted. And yet, shaking the system brought enemies. Academia turned its back. Mainstream archaeologists labeled him a fraud, saying his ideas were fantasy. Giorgio wasn't fazed. Every insult, he claimed, was proof that he was scratching the surface of a truth someone didn't want uncovered. "If I'm so wrong," he'd say, "why are they so angry?" The tension wasn't just academic, it got personal. When a young journalist named Jason Colavito interviewed him in 2002, what started as a routine Q&A spiraled into a shouting match. Emails flew. Accusations grew. Giorgio blocked Jason from contacting his idol, Erich von Däniken, the author of Chariots of the Gods. Years later, the feud was immortalized on Ancient Aliens. Jason's name appeared on screen with brooding music in the background, painted as the opposition. Giorgio didn't just debate his critics, he turned them into characters in his epic story. For him, disagreement wasn't about logic. It was about defending a vision that was too grand, too bold to be crushed by footnotes. But behind the headlines and alien theories was a love story few saw coming. On March 10, 2013, Giorgio married Chris Gioielli, a gifted glass artist from Florida. Her life was art, his was ancient mysteries, but somehow their worlds merged beautifully. While Giorgio journeyed across continents chasing clues from the past, Chris quietly shaped delicate glass pieces at home, selling them online to admirers who didn't even know she was married to a TV icon. Giorgio wore her jewelry on air, not with fanfare, but like a hidden badge of pride. In a world where image is everything, they stayed refreshingly real. They didn't need grand gestures. A quiet smile, a homemade necklace. That was their kind of love. If there's one lesson to take from Giorgio's path, it's this: owning your voice, no matter how strange it seems, can turn imagination into an empire. He's proof that a life driven by curiosity can lead to global fame, personal peace, and a financial legacy built not just on what you know, but what you dare to believe. And maybe, just maybe, he's right. Maybe the greatest truths are hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with wild hair, bold ideas, and an unshakable vision to call them out. And that's the wild, mind-bending journey of the ancient aliens guy. Turns out, he's more than just a meme. From ancient astronaut theories to pop culture icon, Giorgio's story proves that passion, no matter how out there, can leave a mark. If you love this ride, hit like, drop your thoughts below, and subscribe for more. Next up, we dive into another icon's untold story. Until then, aliens, definitely possible.